of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the Chelmsford Public Schools website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting has notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made a part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. Are there any members of the press here? All right, well, welcome to tonight's meeting. Our first order of business is to approve our minutes from the May 2nd meeting.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from our meeting on May 2nd.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions or corrections? Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor. All right, next up we have our Chelmsford High School student representatives.
Hello, everyone. So today, the sophomores had math MCAS, and they will continue it tomorrow. And today was also the job shadow day for all juniors, where they got to spend the day with a professional from a career of their choice, and it was a lot of fun for me. And also today, the Crochet Club donated over 30 hats to cancer patients at Lowell General Hospital. And this week was the last week for seniors, and any seniors taking finals will do so next week.
Since this week is the seniors' last week, they have spirit days. Monday was PJ Day, Tuesday was beach theme, Wednesday's Chelmsford High School apparel, Thursday's college apparel, and Friday's sundress and jerseys. And starting May 30th is the seniors' week of events. So they're starting off with their prom at Wachusett Mountain Resort, and then there's their after prom. Thursday, June 1st is a senior barbecue. Friday, June 2nd is their graduation rehearsal, and Saturday, June 3rd is the senior class's graduation at the Tsonga Center. And the third annual Emily Myerson Memorial Soccer Tournament will take place on Sunday, June 11th at the stadium.
Well, that's really a lot of great news. So you had your job shadow day. What did you do?
So I went to my dad's office at Boston Dynamics, and I shadowed a mechanical engineer because I want to do something STEM related, and it was really helpful. Like, it was really interesting to see what they do on a daily basis there.
So Boston Dynamics is the one that has those robots that dance
Yes.
and the dog dancing robot. Have you seen it? Oh, you have to see it. I'll show it to you after. Yeah. It's a very, very cool place.
It is super cool. Yes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right, we do not have any registered public speakers tonight.
We do not.
All right, so we will move on to new business.
Yes. First up this evening, sorry, you caught me off guard there. First up this evening is we're going to invite Stephanie Quinn, who's our coordinator for social studies, and it looks like she has a couple of students with her to talk a little bit about what's happening in your department. So welcome aboard, Stephanie, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much. Again, I'm Stephanie Quinn. I'm the Social Science Department Coordinator for Chelmsford Public Schools. I have with me tonight Injira Nkamsa and Rachel O'Brien, who will be presenting with me both our outstanding CHS seniors. So you get to see what they're like at the very end of this whole process. We're excited and thankful that they're here tonight. Tonight, I just wanted to go through some activities that we've been working on in elementary, middle, and high school in our department. Talk about some of our community connections that we're working on because we really want to make sure that we are an active member of our community and that the community has an opportunity to see how wonderful and amazing our students really are. We'll talk about building some new opportunities for students. We're developing a path for criminal justice, so students have an opportunity to look at taking dual enrollment courses in criminal justice and seeing if it's something that they're really interested in pursuing in their future. We'll focus on two skills in particular that we tend to work a lot on in kindergarten all the way through high school, all the way through grade 12, which is research and inquiry. We'll talk about some of the club highlights that are related to the social science department, and then talk about the upcoming 8th grade civics MCAS, and some other new and interesting things. So first off, I wanted to talk about some of the things that our kids have been doing this year. So in grade 3, we have our students visiting Garrison House. We'll talk about some of our community leaders who have been present and visiting with our high school students. And the select board has also done a great job of outreach with our students to connect with them and learn more about what we can do for youth and civic engagement and enhancing civic engagement. And then some of the relationships that we've developed with the Chelmsford Police Department as well to give students some new opportunities. So the first is the Garrison House. We all know it. We love it. We are so lucky to have this museum essentially in our community. And all third graders in the Chelmsford Public Schools had an opportunity to visit the Garrison House this year. Deb Taverna, who is just a treasure and volunteers her time to meet with the students and do a lot of volunteer work at the Garrison House. She dresses in her period uniform and she leads the students through the main house. They get to have an opportunity to see all the artifacts there. They get to ask questions, which they have a lot of in grade 3, which is so much fun. And Deb does a wonderful job really engaging with the students and giving them an opportunity to see what's in their community. Hopefully they go back and they have the opportunity to do that when she does a lot of community events later on. We also take a lot of time to invite community leaders in to meet with our civics students at the high school. I know Dr. Lang went in and spoke to our classes this year. We've also had members of the select board meeting with them. A member of the Lowell Police Department who also works with the FBI, Tom Daly, he's had an opportunity to go in and talk to the students as well. So we really enjoy it when community members who have related topics or related experiences come in and have the opportunity to engage with our students, talk to them about their own roles, and really engage with students to find out what it is that they're interested in learning about. We also take a lot of our students to the State House to have an opportunity. So those are some of our civics students there who got to sit in the House floor and have some conversations with representatives, which was a wonderful experience for them. Our civics teachers, Dan Richter and Julie Durgan, do a wonderful job of making sure that they make those connections with individuals and provide these opportunities for our students. We also participated in Mass Civic Learning Week, which is a week in early March where a lot of elementary school activities are done that allow students to meet virtually. So we had students in Ms. Potzner's class and Ms. Doobie's class meet with a judge. So they logged on with a number of schools across the state, and they got to ask questions of judges about what it is in their day, what does their day look like, what kinds of things do they get to decide on. So the kids had a lot of great questions, and they were wonderful. So some of those pictures are from Ms. Potzner's class and Ms. Doobie's class as well. So we also just had an opportunity last Wednesday to take our criminal justice classes on a walking field trip over to the Chelmsford Police Department. We met with Detective Ahern and Detective Tyros, and then a number of other members of the police department in different divisions of the police department. Were able to give the students a tour of the police department and talk about the interactions between their department, but a number of other facilities and individuals that work in the criminal justice field. So it wasn't just about what happens at the police department, but really providing them with students with some insight on what it's like to work in this general field. So students had a great opportunity. They got to tour the entire facility. They got to see some of the equipment and interact with some of the equipment as well. So those are some of the pictures, and we just got an opportunity to do that last week, and the weather was perfect for the walk, so that was fantastic. So along those lines, we're looking at really helping students who are interested or demonstrate that they have some interest in criminal justice to explore more about the field. And we have a number of, dual enrollment courses that are actually lead students on a path if they're interested in exploring or developing or moving towards a criminal justice degree. They can start at Chelmsford High School and start building those courses because we have that relationships with Middlesex Community College. So actually I have Rachel here. I'm going to slide out of the way and let Rachel kind of talk a little bit about the criminal justice course and some of these other courses that she's taken and leading to her future plans at this point. Stand up.
Hey, I have taken a lot of courses on this list. I have taken psychology, criminal justice, and I'm currently in statistics, DE statistics, and they have all been wonderful classes. They have been some of my favorites that I've taken. I took criminal justice in the fall of this year, and we learned all about different types of cases and how those cases apply to our life now, how to contact a lawyer if you ever need one, how to become a lawyer if you want to become one, and a bunch of different types like that. And that's really why I took it, because I was really interested, and I still am, in the law and different types of history and cases and stuff like that. And that class really helped me figure that out and determine exactly where I wanted to go. And I took psychology in the spring of my junior year, and that was kind of the same idea as criminal justice, but it was a little bit before. And that helped me figure out also more about the law. I was able to write a paper about how post-traumatic stress disorder impacts different types of law and decisions that are made. And that was one of my favorite things that I've done because it was so interesting to research all of it and see how it plays in together. And that was also why I took statistics, because statistics plays a major role in psychology. And statistics is a math class that I really understand and I grasp it because I can see the real world concept of it. And it's just been great. I've been taking statistics DE, dual enrollment, and criminal justice dual enrollment. And I'm pretty sure both of those count to my college. I have taken those credits out of the way. So, yeah.
Thank you. Rachel, I'm going to scoot back and I won't do that again. I'll actually move the microphone instead of moving bodies, but it's okay.
Could I ask a quick question? Are you in the process of exploration, or do you have some idea of what it is that you might want to do?
I know what I'm going to go into. I'm going to UNH for their history and law program. I only have 3 years of undergraduate education, and I have 3 years in law school. My senior year will be spent as my first year in law school.
Great, thank you. Congratulations.
All right, so moving on to some other skills that we really like to develop with our students, we wanted to highlight, focus on inquiry and research. So this is something that we're doing at the elementary, the middle, and the high school level. And so those are some of our topics that I'm going to address right now: histories, mysteries, action civics projects, and AP capstone. So the history and mysteries, they actually partnered with iCivics, and they've created this program called Private Eye History Detectives. And this is a K-5 lesson that are available to everyone in Massachusetts that are free. They are aligned to the Massachusetts state frameworks, and they're really focused on inquiry. So that we're trying to get the students to investigate history. They're going to look at images, artifacts, primary sources, and they're going to be presented with intriguing questions. Through that process, through those lessons, the students get an opportunity to kind of design or consider their own lessons, so they're developing their inquiry skills, and then additionally they're going to be searching through those artifacts and searching through those images in order to find the evidence. So they're going to be able to state claims, and they're going to be able to support those claims with evidence. So we're working on that. Those are embedded in a lot of our curriculum maps from K to 5. So they're a lot of fun. They're great activity. The kids really enjoy loving these. It's so much fun to see a class go through one of these lesson plans. At the middle school and the high school level, we have our Action Civics project. So this is relative to Chapter 296 of the Acts of 2018 to promote and enhance civic engagement. So the state of Massachusetts has everyone involved in grades 8 and then at least once at the high school to conduct a civics project where students get to choose a topic that is important to them. So they really have some opportunity to create an individual investigative project. They're going to identify what the issues are, what the concerns are relative to that issue. They're going to take some time to do some research and investigation on what are the potential solutions to the problem. So it's not just identifying a problem, it's really thinking and considering what are the potential solutions. They have an opportunity and are encouraged to reach out to community leaders who have some stake in whatever the issue is, so that they not only can learn from some of the experts, but they can learn to work on their communication skills with individuals outside of the schools as well as inside of the schools, depending on their topic. They develop an action plan. So what is the best potential solution that they can consider based on their research? And then they have an opportunity to present their findings to their classmates, to their teachers, to their administrators. We're encouraging at both the middle school and the high school that that other teachers pop in on these presentations, that administrators take a chance to step in on these presentations as well. So the students can really highlight and showcase what they've learned as part of this process. And then we have another student here, Inshira, who's going to talk to us a little bit about our AP Capstone program. She is an AP Capstone almost graduate and did a fantastic presentation this year. So this is another course that really highlights, or another program that really highlights the importance of inquiry and research, as the students, by the time they get to AP Research, are developing a unique and original research question and then seeing it through. So they're doing the work of, what was that, honors thesis level project or paper in college. And they're doing it here at Chelmsford High School. So I'm going to let Inshira talk a little bit more about her project and then her takeaways from the experience.
Hello. So my project was called A Tuna's Oldest Time, and it was a deep dive on the history and the effects of misogyny or misogynoir, which is misogyny directed towards Black women and how that affected Black girls that lived in the Merrimack Valley. So for my research project, I did a case study, and I focused on 3 schools that had about the same demographics, predominantly white with a small Black female population. And with the help of 2 representatives at 2 other schools in the Merrimack Valley, I was able to send out a survey and get responses from these students, these participants, and then be able to analyze them and come with the final conclusion. And my final conclusion was there is an effect of misogynoir in rap music on the way that Black girls perceive themselves, but it's not a big enough impact that it's a problem that people seem to want to think about more. And I'm hoping to take this research a little further, but going into what I learned, the first thing was ciphering and selecting sources. A big part of my research paper was the literature review, and it took months to get through all the sources that I had to go through, and I had to be really critical about which ones that I wanted to include, because I could include a million sources about the history of hip hop, but if it wasn't going to get me to my main topic about how hip hop affects women, then I was just wasting my time. So I had to learn how to be selective. And then another one was the importance of delegation. As I mentioned, I did my surveys at 3 schools, and I'm more of a perfectionist, so I wanted to be able to control what was going on, but I had to trust my representatives at 2 other schools to make sure that the surveys were getting done by participants there in order to make sure that I got the full amount of results that I needed. And then lastly, efficient methods of analysis of data. My class was taught by Mr. Vitale, and his wife, Mrs. Vitale, got her PhD. So she was able to come in and talk to us and give us some tips on how to analyze the data that we collect. And she taught us the process of coding, which is where you take the narrative responses from your participants and you look through for major themes. So that way you're not just quoting every individual participant in your final presentation, but actually showing the bigger takeaways. And then so for the important skills I gained, time management was a huge one. This is a self-paced project, and your teachers can only do so much by telling you what to do. So it was really on me trying to find balance between my extracurriculars, but also making sure that I found time to sit down and surf through the sources, as well as actually write the paper and create the presentation. And then another skill was public speaking. A lot of this project was presenting my ideas throughout the process to a board. One part of it was the IRB, which is when we had administration come in and we had to pitch our idea to them and see if it was approved. And if it wasn't approved, we would have to go back and look through it again and come up with a better idea. And the last one was networking. One of the requirements for this project was to have a mentor. Many people found a consistent one. Other ones found one that was here and there. Mine was more here and there. I reached out to 3 columnists that wrote about hip hop. They were all Black women. Only one of them responded. Her name was Hannah Georges. And with her help, I was able to find more sources that directly match the topic that I was looking at. And I was also able to gain access to some of her articles on The Atlantic because I don't have a subscription. So I was able to get a free PDF of it and was able to quote them in my actual presentation.
Well, your public speaking is excellent.
She's passed that one for sure.
What are your plans for next year?
I'm going to be attending UMass Lowell. I will be a part of their honors college and I'll be studying computer science.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to our club highlights. We have a few clubs at the high school that are related to our social science department and that they are instructed or advised by our social science teachers. So the first is the speech and debate team, which had another successful year under the guidance of Mr. Zopes, who had a lot of parents and alumni that have been helping him out over the course of this year. Currently, we have 44 members of the National Speech and Debate Association Honor Society, which is, I think, a record for us in terms of participation. 2/3 of these students have earned some kind of special distinction or distinction with honor within the Honor Society. And many members of the speech and debate team actually held the state speech and debate finals this year at CHS. So they ran the entire program. They did a wonderful job. It's a huge undertaking to take that on, and that club is just outstanding. And we just wanted to highlight Sophia Roy, who's going to be competing at the national levels in early June. So we just want to wish her the best of luck. She's had a very successful season, and we hope that continues for her in the coming months. Then we're also going to talk about our mock trial team, but because I have a mock trial team member with me, I was going to turn it back over to her to highlight how they've been doing this year.
All right, so this year is the first year that we've returned to in-person competition in 3 years, which was a big win for us because it was really hard to do it online because there were so many different factors of like muted or just not knowing what was going on. It was a really helpful situation that was awesome because we got to host other schools. We had them at the high school in the Learning Commons. They came about 3:30 after school, and we were there until about 7. That's how long it took. We had a little break in between, but that's how long it took. And what we did was this year was a civil case, and we argued that case a few months ago, it was back in January, and currently we're in the middle of an in-school mock trial on a criminal case to prepare the underclassmen for next year. And throughout this case and throughout this whole year, we've had help from the attorneys on the board, Attorney Dennis McHugh, Kevin Sullivan, Linda Dantas, and Lauren Stagnan, also with Attorney Durkin. He's not mentioned, but he helped us a lot. Without their help, we would not have been able to do what we did because we did not know how to effectively write questions and how to effectively question a witness, how to have proper courtroom etiquette, or how to do a case brief. We didn't understand how to do any of that, and they helped us tremendously with all of that. Yeah.
And our last, and Mr. Cole, did we mention Mr. Cole? I
Yes,
can't
Mr.
remember.
Cole.
Mr. Cole is
Yeah,
the advisor
he's
for
awesome.
that program.
He's been doing that for quite some time now, hasn't he?
Yes, he has, yep, for a number of years. So in our last club that we have is the Model UN, and that one is advised by Miss Jennifer Doak. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that they had a really successful conference this year at UMass Lowell. They actually earned the Outstanding Delegation Award. 2 of the students were in the top 2 within their own delegation. So we have had some pretty big successes across the board in all 3 of these social sciences clubs, due in large part to their advisors, the teachers in the department, and the fact that we have so many students that are interested in participating in these clubs, and they just do an outstanding job. So what's next? What's next in history and social sciences is that there is, coming down the pike, an 8th grade civics MCAS. There is a pilot. It's been piloted for the last few years. It's still under development, even with a pilot. There's going to be 2 parts as of right now. That's the latest information. So one part is actually an end-of-year exam, much like we know in terms of the science MCAS or the science and technology MCAS. And it's going to focus on the curriculum in units 1 through 7 in grade 8. And then there's also going to be a local performance task, which is conducted in the classroom, takes 1 to 2 days. We don't know what that necessarily looks like yet, but that's not something that we need to send in scores or anything for. That's just it's a practice almost. Excuse me. So we anticipate that this exam will be coming down the line, that it will be part of a requirement potentially in the near future. So we're just thinking ahead, we have our 8th grade curriculum is around civics, but we kind of took the state frameworks and did a little modification. So we do spend a lot of time more on history and some comparative government at the beginning of the school year, and then we launch into civics so students really have an understanding of how unique and important and fragile and worthy this current system is that we have in place. So we have to do some modifications to that to really make sure that we have plenty of time to prepare students if we move in this direction for a full 8th grade civics MCAS. The other thing that we're looking to do is continue to expand opportunities to work with members of the community. As you can see, we've had a lot of people contributing within the district, and we greatly appreciate how welcoming the Chelmsford community is, how excited they are to look for opportunities to enhance civic engagement of our students and to participate with us in conversations at the school levels. That's been fantastic, and we look forward to continuing that. With our work in the humanities in the ELA department and our relationship with Middlesex Community College, we're looking at how we really address humanities and AI. This is not an issue just for Chelmsford, but it's an issue for everybody. So I'll be attending a conference in the coming week with Middlesex Community College to learn more about what local universities are doing with regards to specifically humanities. And then we're going to continue the review of our curriculum and resources to really enhance inclusive and inquiry-based instructional practices in K-12. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to both of my presenters tonight. These are outstanding future graduates or almost graduates of Chelmsford High School. This is where they get to at the end of the 12 years here in Chelmsford Public Schools. I'm grateful to work in a community that works to develop these individuals, and I'm grateful to work with the teachers that have put so much effort into these students and many of the others, the hundreds of others that will be graduating in just a couple weeks. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for highlighting all of the wonderful things that are happening in the social studies department. Tremendous amount of work by our staff and our students, and it couldn't have been done without excellent leadership from you, so thank you. And the school committee would be happy to participate in any type of civics engagement, because we love education and law. Anytime, please feel free to reach out.
Wonderful.
Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add?
Can I say something about humanities and AI? First of all, I'm really glad to see that you're adding that in and that you're going in, because law, you will find in the future, a lot of it is being taken over by AI, or we need to learn how to work with AI. And echo the comments, you guys are fantastic. Question in terms of why are we focusing more on criminal justice and not as much on just the humanities in general? Is it because it's a particular path that we can go through and the state is designating? What is the reason?
Right, so the reason is really that we have the coursework available to us that's already in place at Chelmsford High School. So we do offer a number of humanities courses, but not all of them are aligned to dual enrollment courses that are offered at Middlesex Community College, who is our primary partner in dual enrollment. So that this was an opportunity to kind of looking at the coursework that we already had established in place and that was already approved to be dual enrollment with dual enrollment instructors, because a lot of our faculty are identified as adjunct professors at Middlesex Community College. So students are taking these classes right on our campus. So because we had a lot of these components in place, we could say to students, if this is something you're interested in, we can get you started. We can help you out with that.
Okay.
It's not the end point or the only point that we're looking at, but it's what we have in place right now that we can really communicate out to the community that we have in place.
Because sometimes I think that it leaves out careers like teaching, for instance. You know, people don't think of that as soon as they come into freshman year. And then it's like an afterthought towards the end. Oh, I'm not great at science, but I can teach it. Or, you know, no, that's not really what you want. You want somebody who's interested in human development, which is exactly what this is. So I would love to see us heading towards that direction of having more and more thinking about a whole area of human development. But what you're already doing here is phenomenal. It's really fantastic. I have one more question.
Yeah.
And it's about the research, the AP research. If you're not an AP student and you don't decide to do it at an AP level, what other course in our high school will get you to a research paper?
So there's a number. We do offer research. A lot of our freshmen are going to be doing a research paper. And then our juniors do a number of smaller research papers.
Yeah.
But primarily the civics project, when we took the recommendations from the state, at the high school level, we also utilized our knowledge of the research process that is taught in AP Capstone and modeled some of that work off of that. So a lot of students had the opportunity to really dive into some of that work on a scaled back level, because the civics project at the high school takes about 5 or 6 weeks, whereas Inshira had an entire school year that she was
Good.
diving into it.
Because what I'm seeing going into the college world is that it makes or breaks you. You really need to know this skill
Absolutely.
when you get through that freshman year.
Yeah, and Unit 7, sorry, my apologies, in grade 8 civics is all on media literacy and bias, so really understanding how to sort through your sources, like Injera was talking about, how important that is, and I know you've done that in a number of your classes as well, that we want to make sure students really understand that. That's also another component that becomes essential to revisit throughout all 4 years of the high school, but primarily when we do that civics project too, that we have a couple lessons that are devoted to that as the students launch into their civics project.
Wonderful. Congratulations to you both, and enjoy next year.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Stephanie, thanks very much, and ladies, thanks very much for coming. Hey, good night.
Good night.
Your partner's leaving you there. You want to go in?
Certainly.
Okay. Second item on the agenda this evening, we have a lot of procedural things on this evening, but the second one is the annual vote of the school committee to appoint the delegate to the Valley Collaborative Board of Directors. So our district is a member district of Valley Collaborative, and I've served as the board's representative for the last, I think, since I've been here. I very much enjoy doing it and would be happy to serve in that capacity again. But it is an annual vote that the school committee needs to take to appoint me to fill that role. So I would love the honor and would request your vote to do that tonight.
Thank you. Dennis, will you make a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Superintendent Lang to serve as the Chelmsford representative on the Valley Collaborative Board of Directors.
Second.
All right, any questions or discussion? Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I really do.
It's a good
What's
group.
that?
It's a good group.
It's an excellent group. It's a great organization, and we meet every other month about, but it's a good group of just educators. Our particular board happens to be superintendents. There are other boards in the state that have a mix of school committee members and superintendents. But I very much like the work and I like the organization, so I'm happy to keep doing that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0 in favor.
Thank you very much. Third item on the agenda this evening, I'm going to ask Joanna to just review the overview of our student transportation program for next year. This is typically the meeting where we talk about setting the dates for registration for riders and fees and whatnot. So I'm going to turn that over to Joanna.
Thank you. So in your packet is 3 topics about the bus, and this is the big yellow school bus. So I'm going to give a little overview of what happened this past school year. We're going to ask you also to vote on the rates for families to pay if you need to. No change to the rates are going to be recommended. It's going to be the same rates. And then we're just going to show you the flyer on what will be on our website for how families can register their students to ride the bus. So this year, we had 29 buses making 3 runs each day. You start at the high school, and then they drop those students off and go get the middle school kids and drop them off, and then go make another run and get the elementaries. And in a typical year, we have about 3,400 students riding the bus, and this year, we had 3,476 students riding the bus. The fee structure is, if you're K to 6, over 2 miles, you do not have to pay a fee to ride the bus. Everybody else needs to pay a fee if you'd like to ride the bus for the year. And then these funds go into the Transportation Revolving Fund, and that helps pay the bus company, helps offset the approximately $1.8 million we pay for the 29 buses that run every day. And then the next section is a little chart of when families register to ride, and it's between June. We prefer between June and early August, but you can register anytime during the year. And we have a big push in June and July to register to ride the bus. We need to know where you are so that we can schedule your bus stop and create an efficient route and get everybody to school on time safely. So the little dates that are in red are the families that tend to wait until late August. And it's going down, but it's still, close to, a little over 700, which is a lot. So we just really encourage families to register your student to ride the bus before you leave this school year would be great in June. There is a little discount if you register early.
And you should register even if you're not required to pay a fee.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. We need to know where you are.
Right.
Yep. And to pick you up and bring you to school. And then the other little chart is the schools and how many buses make routes for those schools. For example, the Byam has 8 buses that have 399 students, and there's about 50 students on each bus. Just a reminder, the capacity of the bus is 83 students. And then the last page is just a little overview of how we've improved through the years. We brought in a transportation coordinator, Peter Berkalis. He's still with us, and he does all this routing and bus passes and helps solve families' issues. The online registration, we use My School Bucks now. We switched off of MCC last year. So it's the same program, My School Bus. So you register and you pay using that. And then we will send out the bus passes in mid-August so that when everybody comes back to school at the end of August, they'll know what bus they're on. This will also be on X2, saying their bus number, what time they should be there at the bus stop in the morning, what time they should be getting home, and other important information like that. So any questions on this year's overview?
How'd the My School Bucks work out?
I think initially it was a little bumpy, anytime you roll out a new system. But then, I think it got a lot better. The big thing that helped was we used to have to know your student ID, that big long digit that begins with 55. Now, if you just know your date of birth, your student's date of birth, that really helps a family too to register you got to register all your kids. So.
Has it extended beyond the transportation to any other fees or?
We are using that for athletics.
Okay.
And we are using it for the fee to participate in the club, the $50 a year. So those are the things we're using My School Bucks for.
I remember a couple of years ago that we had a problem with the bus passes having personal information on them.
We took
And
all that off.
Right, okay, so I just want to make sure that we were all set on that.
Yep.
Can you explain why 2 miles?
That's in the Mass General Law.
Okay, thank you. And then the last thing is, what percentage of our bus fees actually go to the total cost for transportation in the district?
It's about 20%.
20%, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Can I make a comment on the bus thing? Why do you think, and I don't know why, Harrington always has lower bus numbers. All the years I've been here, it's always a lower number, and they have more drop-offs,
Or they could have more walkers.
more walkers. Very likely, because of the neighborhoods. Okay. I wondered. Thank you.
Okay, the next memo is actually the fees, okay? So again, I'm not recommending any change. So it's, if you register early between June 1st and July 4th, it would be $175 per student and a $400 family cap. If you register between July 5th and July 31st, it would be $200 per student and a family cap of $500. If you register August 1st through January 31st, it would be $225 per student and a family cap of $500. And then if you register in February or after, it would be $100 per student and a family cap. And the reason we structured it that way was to try to encourage families to register in June. So this would take, oh, did I not write? I didn't write the motion.
No,
Okay.
you
Okay,
did,
put them
yeah.
together, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can Dennis put them
Can I
together?
put them together into one motion?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Dennis?
I make a motion to adopt the transportation fee structure for the 2023-2024 school year and establish a regular, early, late, and half-year registration dates as presented.
Right.
Good?
Second?
Are there any other questions? Did you have anything else, Joanna? Did we cut you off there? Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Just unrelated, but have we figured out McCarthy Parker?
We're very close.
Okay. We're not related.
We're very, very close.
Yeah.
No, we'll actually have an update for you on that whole,
Okay.
the realignment at the first meeting in June.
Okay.
So we're only a couple weeks away. And Joanna, you did have it listed, it just isn't red. Usually you put them in
Oh,
red.
yes.
But the wording is listed there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the last page is really just the flyer.
It's just a little flyer that will go on the website and just has the same thing, but just in a little 2-page, quick, probably a little easier to read on your phone or on your computer, on the dates, the amounts, who pays. And again, as Chairwoman said, you have to register to ride the bus, even if you're free.
Right, and there's one other thing, a point that I really want to make right now. That if you do it late in the summer, then you're going to have to wait a little bit of time before you get a bus stop that may be closer to you, correct?
Right.
Because the routes will already be established.
That's right.
And before we make any changes, we have to see how things go.
That's right. We will set the routes and the bus stops based on the information we have by like early August, mid-July, early August. And then out the gate in August, end of August, we'll see how it all goes, and we won't be changing any bus stops, and then as more people register, if we need to add some bus stops, we will, but it won't be right away. And the reason we, have a group of students together at a bus stop is it's safer and it makes the route go a little quicker so that everybody can get to school on time.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Joanna.
Thank you.
Fourth item on the agenda this evening, we did at the last meeting, we began the process, and we have another smaller set of some recommended one-time purchases for the school committee's consideration. So there's a cover memo and then a list of some of the additional items. Many of these were items that we were still working on getting quotes for and whatnot. The big number, two on here. Bill Silver and Technology has a grant that's paying for some of the upgrades to the ClearTouch, the Chromeboxes on the back of the ClearTouch machines that we had installed prior to and during COVID, and we would like to do a complete refresh this summer on all those units. So there's some additional money that we have to contribute from the the local side to make that work. And then the second big purchase, which is kind of multi-line items within here, as we're looking at the realignment, the reconfiguration of the spaces at McCarthy, the 7th and 8th grade, obviously, there's a couple of the science labs that are equipped for some of the projects that the kids do, but we still have the old, like the built-in benches and things like that, that really just make the rooms not functional. And we'd like to do a little bit of a refurbishment of the 8 labs that we're actually going to be now using for 7th and 8th grade. So split into these lines are, number one, to go into those 8 rooms, and some of the tile on the floors is asbestos containing, so we need to do an abatement to remove the VCT that has asbestos in it. If you weren't doing a renovation, you would leave it alone, it's all encapsulated, but because you are actually doing a renovation, you would do the abatement on those tiles, and then remove all the old kind of built-in desks that just really aren't functional anymore. I know if you've been in those rooms, you're kind of like needing to be near the front of the room where the desks can be, because the back of the lab, and it's just a lot of dead space. So those will all come out, and then there'll be a new floor, similar to what we have in the hallways. So instead of doing like the squares, we'd have more like planks in the rooms to really just kind of dress up the spaces a little bit. And then the big number here is actually like the equipment. So it's new kind of modular portable desks, not desks, I'm sorry, like workstations for the kids to have. When we toured the high school science lab, everything was on the perimeter as opposed to being near the front of the building or the middle of the space. So that would be the concept here. And then obviously water and power would be added after the fact on the wall, as opposed to being out in the middle of the floor. So it's a science lab refurbishment that we'd be doing ourselves internally, as opposed to having this be like a bigger town capital project or even part of like a bigger MSBA project. So those are several of the line items you'll see within here is the big request for tonight. So this request in total falls just under $600,000. So this one combined with the 1.3 the last time would bring us to about 1.9, a little under $2 million in total of one-time spending. There are still some additional items that are kind of hanging out there, and we're still looking to get quotes or whatnot kind of finalized. And likely that would come forward at the June meeting. But that's when we'll also do all of our year-end transfers. Joanne will have a much better sense of any of the remaining salary lines where there may be some savings generated, and we can also look to that as part of our funding strategy of one time, putting money into revolving funds that can carry over, and then also that special ed reserve fund if we need to put a little bit of money in there, because that's like a savings account for us for future years for special ed costs. So I'm happy to talk about any of the recommendations tonight, but this is the list before you for consideration.
I have a question, not anything specific, but I had someone ask me who's watched some of these meetings, who gets concerned when money gets taken from one area and put into another. So for instance, out of paraprofessionals into maintenance. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because they're worried that they're really taking money away from the paras, where I know that's not what's actually happening, but who watch might think that's what's happening.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to explain it in kind of bigger terms. So the reason that these are like one-time expenditures, and we're very careful about this each year, is because we're using savings that has accrued over the course of this fiscal year. So our fiscal year starts last July 1st, and it goes to this June 30th. And when we put our budget together for this fiscal year, which would have happened that previous spring, we set out our staffing plan for the year. So it's, so many administrators and so many teachers and so many paraprofessionals right down the line. And we fund all of their salaries, if that's the example, in the budget. So over the course of the year, naturally you have openings. So, someone may leave, someone may retire mid-year, and they were at a higher step than their replacement. So there's a little bit of a savings that's built into the budget that you're recouping during the process of the year. Now, the person who comes in at, say, a lesser step is accounted for in the following year's budget, because we know they're at a lesser step. So if they're on, say, step 2, they're going to go to step 3. We account for that when we put the next fiscal year budget together, but you still have a little bit of savings you've accrued over the course of that year. This has also been a difficult year as far as like hiring all of our support staff in the building. So it's been difficult to hire all of our paras that we budgeted for just because of the market. So we have some salaries that have actually been budgeted that we just haven't expended. So if we know we need those positions for the next fiscal year, we have still budgeted those positions for next year. We're actively trying to hire right now, but you're still, in this current fiscal year, you're accruing the savings. right, to the budget. And so we're able to reallocate that savings and purchase things that have no long-term effect, or they don't have like a multi-fiscal year effect. They're costs that we can contain within this particular fiscal year. So if you save $100, we can spend $100 once on items and things that we want to that aren't going to have a cost in the future year. So we would never actually hire like a staff member, right? We wouldn't use that money to hire a staff member, which we didn't budget in the following year. So we look for projects. We take a look at our capital projects in the district that we try to fund. We solicit ideas from principals and department coordinators about different needs within the departments that they can bring forward for consideration. And again, it's more like supplies and one-time, like a service or something along those lines. So that's what is kind of coming forward. In the case of like the science lab refurbishment, when we complete that project this year, it doesn't have a cost for next year. So that's why it makes sense, and that's why each year we do this in the springtime. Joanna works very closely to kind of do our budget projection to figure out how much extra one-time money we have, and we try to knock off and accomplish some capital projects. So it does not affect it all long-term, because the positions are funded for next year, and we're actively, again, trying to hire. But in this particular year's fiscal budget, we're able to reallocate and buy some things that we couldn't have afforded or we couldn't have anticipated going in if we had been, say, fully staffed over the course of that year. Or if, someone had been at step 10 and didn't retire and their replacement came in at step 3 or 4, right? You wouldn't have recouped that. So I hope that's helpful.
No, that you've explained it much more clearly than I would have been I was able to when I was asked. So I think that's
I'm
really
happy
helpful
to.
for
It's been
us.
it's been a nice funding strategy for us, because we've been able to really get some extra projects completed, which we would have had to have waited if we were just using, say, the town capital funding. And we've been doing this every year. So typically, we either have to reallocate the money and spend it on one-time expenditures, or we can kind of credit some of our revolving funds to be able to kind of carry more money over in a revolving fund, because those do carry over. Or the only other thing the school committee can really do is there was special legislation to create a special education reserve fund, so you can transfer money into that to pay for like unanticipated costs in future years. But if there's $100 left at the end of June, you can't take that $100 and move it to the next fiscal year. So you really do need to spend your money within the fiscal year.
No, this makes sense to me, because these are projects that there's a need for.
All right.
So absolutely,
Right.
makes sense.
I think there is one other thing, and Joanna, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought you mentioned this in one of our last meetings, that some of this one-time money also comes from unpaid leaves.
That's correct.
And as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think you said even the majority of it may come from unpaid leaves.
That is, it's a tough number to project because you don't know what decision a family's going to make. But yes, a big chunk is from unpaid leaves of absence. And then, as Dr. Lang said, someone being hired at a lower step
Right.
than what we had in the budget.
Right.
And I think another important thing is that this money we're spending now, we don't have to ask for this under capital. So this is money that, the town doesn't have to output, because science labs is something, needed to be done 50 years ago. So the fact that they're doing it now is great, but, that's, otherwise we'd have to put that on the capital list to have that done. So I think
Right.
that's a cost savings to the.
And we've talked about, like, being responsible, because that is a certain pot of money that has to be divided all across a lot of places in town. I do have a question with regards to the one-time money and one of the capital projects. Now, I noticed, I know on the capital project, we had an art classroom upgrade. And and then we did do, on this one-time expenditure, I think we did tables and stools at McCarthy, stools, printing press, and a slab at South Row, and a wall in the art room at CHS. But I didn't know if that was something else that we should consider in this.
The art lab one that's on the town's capital?
Yeah, the art classroom upgrade.
The challenge with that
Okay.
is, it's on the town capital, and if it did get moved forward, we would actually have to go out and do a solicitation to have like an architect, an engineer come on board.
Okay.
Because it's a pretty significant like building of space. That is going to wrap over multiple fiscal years.
Okay,
So, and it's more of a timing thing,
Okay,
right?
yep.
So in this particular fund, we received funds in this fiscal year that go through June 30th, and you have 60 days to basically pay your funds. So these projects have to happen between now and August. We would not physically have enough time to get an architect on board, an engineer on board, prepare drawings and plans, go out to bid, hire someone to do it. These are kind of quick hit things
Okay.
that we can do. Even though the science labs have some costs associated, most of this stuff is like furnishings and equipment. So we're going to place the order and the company is going to ship the product to us.
Okay.
It's not like it's a major construction. I know it sounds like a lot because of, say, the abatement and the flooring, but flooring's pretty simple. It doesn't require architectural drawings and things like that to have done. So that's why that would be on here.
Yeah, I was more concerned that, that this was a capital project, and I didn't want, the art program to think that they were being ignored, but it makes sense, what you're saying in terms of having to bring those people on to do a plan, and that this being a multi-year project, as opposed to just a one-time expense.
Right.
So thank you for that.
And I'm not trying to belabor this, the other thing that comes into play with the art room project is it's also HVAC related. So it's not just cut and dry, because you do have to, when you're putting up walls in a space, you have to take into consideration the airflow and, the current mapping of the air for heating and ventilation and whatnot. The scope of that project is just much more significant than like these one-time projects.
And then what about the stairwell at McCarthy? Is that the same kind of thing, or that?
No, on a positive with that one, at the end of the capital process this past spring, it was that and it was the flooring in the modular classrooms that we.
Yes, Dennis and I talked about the floor tiles, right? That got approved. Okay,
Well, the stairwells were part of that.
Okay,
So what
perfect.
ended up happening is that we almost had like a duplicate project. We were funding a project, I think it was the HVAC
exactly
at
what it was,
ComEd.
yep.
And that also happened to be in the town's ARPA funding, so it was the same project being
yeah,
funded
that's what we
twice.
thought, yeah.
So we decided, because it was HVAC related, to let the ARPA run the town pay for that, which then freed up, I want to say about $190,000. And then we were able to basically work with John Souza and take the next couple of school projects that added up to that amount. So we're able to do the VCT and the
Yep.
stairwells at McCarthy.
Okay, perfect.
So that's actually taken care of.
All right, terrific,
So
thank
I
you.
don't have the list in front of me, but
So
like
this was
next big
this
number.
is what we approved, was approved in December,
Right.
and so that's what I was looking at. And we had figured out most of these. I think I forgot about the stairwell being included in those.
It was,
The
yeah,
forecast.
and it's included with them.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions or any further discussion? Then, I'm sorry.
What is the balance now? It was 3 million something, so what's left?
Approximately, it was in the low threes was the last projection. And so this is gonna be about 1.9. So you're probably still at 1.2, 1.3.
Okay.
Ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, Dennis, I'll take a motion, please.
Make a motion to approve the FY 2023 local operating budget transfers totaling $593,361 for the Chelmsford Public Schools presented. This budget transfer is shifting from 5 DESI categories that are favorable to 6 DESI categories where the items should be purchased.
Second.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, all right, Dennis?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0 in favor.
Thank you. There's one other smaller transfer I'll just ask Joanna to present to you.
On that same memo, just down below is another request for a budget transfer unrelated to the one-time purchases. And this is to purchase new computers for administrative staff, such as school clerks, school secretaries, and some of the admin support staff, like, for example, in this building. Bill Silver has funds available in the computer services category, and it's shifting from that DESI category over to the instructional equipment one per school for a total of $77,000.
So the money is available within the technology budget. It's just not in the proper line to be able to purchase and for reporting purposes, make the purchase. So we're just looking to move money within technology.
Are these laptops or desktops or?
It's a little bit of both. Most of them are desktops. There's a few areas where a laptop makes more sense, but most of it is desktops.
Dennis?
I make a motion to approve the FY 2023 local operating budget transfers totaling $77,000 for the Chelmsford Public Schools to purchase new computers for administrative staffs as presented.
Second.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
It's from instructional equipment. It's coming, so we're taking it out of instructional equipment? We're
Putting
moving
it into instructional equipment. Right, so computer services is like our internet service, things like that, and more service-related thing. And this is taking it out of that category and putting it into an equipment category, because we're buying the hardware.
Okay, but it's not, it's for administration, not for instruction.
It's, well, school secretaries and school clerks those are more school-based, and pretty much most of the school-based,
Are under this category,
right? And then the central one, the very first line,
yeah.
like for this building, when
see.
we get the exact number from Bill, I'll put that in the central account.
Okay. Just don't want people to think we're taking this out of the kids and putting it into the administrators, which is not what's happening. It's just the way the category is named. It's gonna be,
So on the left side of the chart is
Yeah.
where it's coming from, and on the right side of the chart is where
it's
it's
going to.
And it's more for the support personnel than
Yeah.
it is the administrators.
Exactly, yeah,
But it's more a difference of services to equipment, is what
Correct.
it's.
right.
That's correct.
It looks like that.
Are there any other questions? Any further discussion? Okay, Dennis?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0 in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joanna. Next item is number 6. This is the FY '24 budget adjustment. So as you recall, when we went through the budget process this spring, we had the $70.7 million budget that was presented to you. When we go page by page through the budget, everything totals up to the salary, the summary level totals, and then you have the individual category level totals below. And we had carried funding in the salary reserve for COLA account because we had unsettled contracts with our custodians at the time. This is when we put the budget together back in January and February. Since that time, we obviously have settled all of our contracts. We have we've even voted like the non-affiliated contract increases or whatnot. And we have the opportunity to go back into the staff salary book and the budget and actually make those adjustments so that the money is in the correct salary accounts for when Joanna and her staff actually enter our budget for next fiscal year in Munis, the accounting system. It's much cleaner to actually enter the actual numbers that you know, as opposed to putting up the budget based on the approval back in February and then having to go in July and make all types of amendments. It'll just make the budget processing and actually reporting cleaner. So what you have before you tonight is we've changed within the category level detail all of the accounts that are actually impacted by any of those salary increases. On the front summary level totals, you'll still see that the bottom right-hand corner of the budget adds up to $70,700,000. And again, it all ties out to everything behind it. So what we'd be looking for is a vote of the committee acknowledging that and acknowledging this new summary level total, again, adding up to the 70.7, because that's how we set up our reporting system for July. And we know if any of these particular accounts are over budget, we come to the committee for a transfer. But we'd want to have the money in the correct accounts going forward for the start of the year. So if the committee reviews and approves this, what I would do is go into this particular document, change the date in the top left-hand corner from approval on February 28th to approval on whatever today is, May 16th. And then we would just update our document up on the website. And this would be the document that we would then enter into Munis for the accounting system for July.
So basically, you just
Does that make
zeroed out
sense?
you zeroed out the COLA.
We zeroed out the
Right,
COLA
I'm
account.
looking at it now, zero out the COLA, just spread the money out.
And the money got put into the correct salary account.
The bottom line is the bottom line it was before.
The bottom line didn't change.
Exactly.
Right.
All right, Dennis, I'll take a motion.
Yeah, make a motion to approve the FY '24 revised summary level account details outlined by the Mass DESI code function totaling $70,700,000.
Second.
All right, does anybody have any further questions? Any further discussion? Okay, Dennis?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0 in favor.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda this evening is item number, actually 7 and 8 for those following along. And I would ask Joanna to review these with you. Not too many substantive changes. We started this process at the last meeting, updating the fee structure for the rental of the spaces. And so this is the documentation that follows that, the handbooks and procedure manuals. So you have those before you tonight. But Joanna, I would turn it over to you.
Thank you. So there's two documents. One is the handbook originally written in 2007 for the high school Performing Arts Center and the McCarthy Auditorium. And the changes are in red. And at the last meeting, you already approved a few of the rates changed. We increased the custodial rates. So those are not in red in this document because you already approved it. And we just kind of, there really weren't that many changes. We updated like our website address and we kind of crossed out a few things if they weren't relevant anymore. But I really didn't add any language. I think it was pretty well written, originally. And then the second document is everything else we rent. So like the gyms, if somebody's taking a classroom, even a parking lot or a cafeteria. And again, we didn't really add anything. We just kind of took some things out, primarily for things we don't do anymore, like we don't rent the computer labs anymore. And then we also added, we used to have a paper document where people would fill out an application, and now it's all online. So we did put in screenshots from the online system where people registered to see if they could rent our facilities.
Well, thank you for doing this. 2007, huh? Wow. Time for an update.
You want one motion or two, because it's two different things.
It's up to you.
I'm okay with one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the update to the policy handbook for the use of the CHS Performing Arts Center and McCarthy Auditorium, and updates to the use of facilities, procedures, and regulations as presented.
Second.
Is there any questions or further discussion?
It just brought to my attention today that your position handles busing and the real estate, really.
It's an honor.
It's quite a position, right?
She said it's an honor.
Yeah. Never mind the numbers.
Just looking at it, real quick, do I need to add the date on there or to the motion, or are you good with it is? Effective,
Well, when you voted today, and
Yeah.
it gets in the minutes, we'll update the date on the manuals.
just as effective July 1st, yeah, okay.
It'll be effective upon your vote.
Okay.
Oh, and I know what you mean.
Yeah,
the
it
rate
says,
structure.
right, this rate structure, you want,
Because the rate structure was, that you voted last time we did for the new fiscal year.
okay, so these don't have to be, okay, great.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor. Thank you
Thank you very
again for
much.
doing this.
Item number 9 this evening is approval of a school committee policy update. So if you recall, over the course of this past winter and early spring, we spent a significant amount of time reviewing all of our policies to make sure that they were up to date. We took a look at all the Mass Association of School Committee policy updates and how they aligned with our policies, and spent a couple of meetings going through them and making some adjustments. There was one policy at that time that we did not approve because we had sent it out, we had sent our current policy out to Attorney Wah's office for them to look at it and to make sure that the new legislation that had come into effect this past fall was properly reflected within the policy. And we just didn't have it back at the time when we were reviewing and approving the others. So we went forward and approved and reviewed all of the other policies. And this is the one, last one that was remaining. And so Attorney Wah's office has gone through it, and as you can see in red, they've redlined the existing policy is black, and his recommendations are all in red throughout the document as far as new language or striking existing language to make sure that your policy is up to speed with and reflects the state statute on this particular matter. So we recommend your review and approval of this policy update, and then all of your policies as of today would be, again, it's going to change at some point in the future.
Already has.
But everything would be, oh, really? Another one?
Yeah, but let's deal with this first, and then we'll talk about that. I'll take a motion,
I
please.
I make a motion to approve changes to school committee policy JIC, student discipline as presented.
Second.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
I do. I understand a lot that has to do with Massachusetts laws, and that's, very clear what has to be in here. But I'm curious to hear more about the part where re-engaging the students, using alternative remedies, including but not limited to mediation, conflict resolution, restorative justice, and collaborative problem solving. Who's really involved in doing that with the students? I'm most interested in the restorative justice piece, but just that in general.
This whole update with regard to the statute came out actually last fall. There was language included in, I think it was actually like an update to the budget that got passed, and there was language included within that that affected some statutes related to student discipline in general. The layman's term, kind of laying this across is that the state legislature would really like you to use suspension or any type of exclusion from school as kind of a last resort. And they want to make sure that the administration of each building, who's charged with ultimately deciding the consequence of an action, has gone through different steps and done basically anything short of suspending someone when they can, or excluding that child from school. So this actually is new language that only went into effect in November. So what we're doing is updating our policy that is in effect. So I think what Attorney Watt has done is basically taken language from the statute to make sure that it's included within here. We have different alternatives to suspension, and I will say, as a district, we don't look to quickly suspend students or exclude them from school. There are certainly times when that has to happen as a consequence to something that takes place in a building, but that's not the administration's first move, is to suspend someone. And again, I think what this is doing is that it's just reiterating from the state level the expectation that almost everything else will be tried before that happens. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, I know, I'm on the town DEI committee, and I've been involved in a number of things with the district attorney's office and some of the things they are doing about that. And there's a real big push with them to use restorative justice practices
Right.
within the schools.
Right.
So I just wondered where Chelmsford might be in that in particular, if there's been any need to really even do much of that.
Well, before we go, so this is 37H and 3/4 that we're talking about, okay?
Primarily.
Primarily, right, but 37H, correct me if I'm wrong, and 37H and a half are not included in this, and because this is pretty important, if it involves weapons, controlled substances, or assault on a staff member in school or a school-related activity, those are not covered by 37H and 3/4, correct? Okay, so I think that's important. It's not like if something serious happens, we're going to, if someone brings a weapon to school, we're not going to have restorative justice, okay? There are consequences for that. This would be 37H and 3/4 is really for everything else. So I only make that distinction because I don't want to think that everybody think that everything is included under that.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, and the attorneys often refer to it as like anything that would kind of be in your like code of conduct violations.
Right.
Or your a generic offense type thing, not the first two offenses. They are covered under different statutes, as Donna had mentioned.
We're talking, I'm thinking of things more like students fighting with students, not
Yeah.
just fighting, not anything as serious as that. Right.
Right. I would say, and I'll turn it over to Linda as well, we have not as a district done a significant amount of work with restorative justice. That's just something that we'll need to explore, obviously, going forward. I don't know if you have specific instances
Yeah, no,
where
I just know that
things
the
have been
schools are looking
implemented.
for different ways to handle situations, right? So instead of jumping right to a suspension, right, how can we re-educate the student? Because sometimes the conduct is something that you need to give some type of an education to so that doesn't happen in the future. Because the suspension itself is not going to suddenly remedy how a student acts towards another student, right? So whether it's a comment or like you said, like just kind of like the bumping in and wrestling kind of things. So the schools have just a few things in their toolbox, right? To help work with these students rather than you're not coming to school or you're doing an in-house suspension, because keeping them from the education is only going to exacerbate the situation. So they have a few different activities that they can use with the students prior to going right to suspension. So if you've tried all of these remedies and then it's still not working, then you might have to go to suspension. Again, nothing precludes us from suspending a student for an egregious act, like the weapons assault on teachers. But there are a few different, we have a few different ways to work with the students.
And is it a lot of times the guidance staff who,
Sometimes it's the guidance staff, it's the office staff with the students, like meaning the principals, right, or supervisor of students. So we just put them into different groups, but we don't have that many incidences that we can't necessarily handle, right? I think what's happening now is that districts are getting together and just sharing like different ideas, right? There might be something that, Tewksbury is doing that we never thought of and vice versa. So people are going through a lot of these different, workshops, seminars, working within their like job-alike groups. But we have at least, 4 or 5 different ways that we can work with kids. Because I think the biggest thing is how do you educate them so that.
I'm glad to hear there's conversations with other
Oh,
schools
yeah,
about.
because we've had, I know, I can think of one instance, and what we did is we had literally a program to help those students then re-engage with their peers.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion or question? You give me a motion on that?
Made a motion, all right.
Thank you very much, sorry. I'm still looking at this policy newsletter, and it's kind of overwhelming to me. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was that an aye from you? Yes?
That was an
Okay,
aye.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
4-0 in favor. And then just finishing up on policies, right after we approved our policies, we got this nice newsletter about,
That's a lengthy newsletter, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
so I don't think that there's, I don't know, we can talk more about it, but I just wanted to bring,
And we may have already adjusted it for
We may
some
have
of these,
already
so we may
adjusted,
want to just cross-check
exactly.
it with what we've already
Yeah.
done and see if there's anything we missed.
right.
Okay.
I think we did a pretty thorough job going through.
Absolutely. It was
Yeah,
just
so-
frustrating. It was
Maria could
literally,
attest to that.
a week after, right, that we got that in the mail.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, this is certainly something we could look at, maybe even like over the summer.
Yeah,
But I can tell
absolutely.
you that a couple of these, I noticed, we've already done.
Yeah, that's what I'm
yes.
thinking.
So what they usually do is an update and they'll list specific ones for that period. This seems like it's just a whole laundry list.
I think what probably would happen is that everybody came out of COVID and all the school committees like, all right, we gotta
Yeah.
relook at our policy and take some off, put some on, and they probably get inundated. And they probably said, all right, let's just come up with a list for everybody to look at.
right, and if you read some of them, it's a punctuation error.
Yeah,
Like
and that's
one,
how a lot of the
so,
things that,
Yeah,
you know,
so very small things.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely take a look at that.
All right.
Item number 10 this evening is just the monthly personnel report, and this is for the month of April. So again, this is just a list of some of our new hires, and this is the time of year that you're going to see some new staff members being hired to help us in the district for next year. So if you see an effective date of August 28th, that's our first day that staff will be reporting back for the fall. So we have some new staff coming on board, a couple of resignations, and then we had a few staff within the district kind of trade or transfer positions. So these are just staff who already work for us, who are going to assume a new role for next year.
how's the hiring process going, how are the applications?
I don't know if I said this last meeting. I have to say overall, fairly well for our like full-time professional positions in the district. We're starting to get back to a good number of applicants for our regular jobs. So, we had, this just jumps out to me, but we had like a 3rd grade opening at Harrington, and we had over 50 applicants.
Really? Wow.
So like that's kind of pre-pandemic levels, so that's great. Even our middle school positions for like, say, math and ELA or whatnot, multiple applicants. So that part is excellent. We're still obviously going to be monitoring like any of the special programs, like special education, things along those lines. But I am even seeing a good number of applicants on those.
Great.
We're going to have to put a push on this summer again for our like support staff to try to get fully staffed for that for the fall. What's difficult at this time of the year is even if we hire some students who are just kind of coming out of college in, say, a support role, they also have their eye on like other professional jobs. So they may take a job but then leave us before the school year starts. So there's always a little bit of transition in the summertime. But all in all, I have to say the hiring's going fairly well. And at one of the June meetings, we can give you a little update on what has been filled and then what is still outstanding.
Thank you.
And the last for me tonight is just approval of some field trips over the course of the summer. These are all the field trips that are related to the community education program, that Summer Quest summer program that they do. There are dates when the different groups of students who participate go to field trips. And these are the field trips that, they're only day-long field trips, there's nothing overnight, but they all happen to be in New Hampshire, they're out of state. So just seeking your approval for these field trips.
I'll take a motion.
All right, do you want, can I do them all at once?
Can we do them all at once?
You
or-
can.
Okay.
Thank goodness. All right, I make a motion to approve the community education out-of-state summer field trips as presented.
Second.
Okay, any questions or further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0 in favor.
And that concludes my portion of the agenda.
Thank you so much. All right, does anybody have any liaison reports tonight?
No, not coming up.
You have one? No, oh, you haven't. I just went to the Alumni Association, first time get to meet that group, very nice group of people. They were just finalizing the list of scholarship winners, and they should be notified if they haven't already by mail shortly. They're going to be foregoing the in-person ceremony this year again, but they're hoping to get back to it next year. So we're just coming out of the pandemic like everybody else, trying to getting reorganized, so they're hoping to have that big ceremony they used to have starting next year again.
Right, thank you. Susan?
I just want to report on Day on the Hill. On May 4th, Donna and Marie and I attended Day on the Hill in Boston, and it was really good opportunity to network with people from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and also to hear and speak with a lot of different legislators in the Mass Senate and the House. We heard a lot about a lot of upcoming bills. Many of them are about financing. I thought it was really interesting to hear the state's, a big state, and there were a lot of people from rural areas that have very, very different needs than we have here. So it was just kind of interesting to me to hear about the different needs that they have. They talked quite a bit about Chapter 70. There were we had that presentation here just a few meetings ago that was very, very thorough, and they kind of gave a summary of that was so similar to what we have. But it was good to hear that money looks like something we might be able to count on for a good while, so that was good to learn. And then there's a lot of other things in the pipelines coming along, so we'll see where that goes, but it was an interesting day.
Thank you. Maria, did you have
Okay.
any?
Yes, so related to that, I was able to meet with two of our representatives from Chelmsford, Simon Cataldo and Jim Arciero. And they both were very interested to hear more about our building proposal. And they would love to be able to, meet and get a more extensive access to what our plans are and why we need it and so on. The other thing is in relation to what we heard on Day on the Hill is that whole committee is being looked at carefully by the legislators in terms of, is it going to be able to continue to fund projects to the level that it should? What projects are going to be coming before that committee? Because you've got, schools like Neshoba, those kinds of schools needing more funding for buildings. Those buildings have a tremendous cost associated with them. So all that's being looked at. So in light of the fact that we would like a building, and that's what I keep on stressing, that we would like a building, I thought it might be a good idea if we did something here, maybe a breakfast or invite them to meet with us. And I think we should include all our representatives. Rodney too, I haven't had a chance to meet with him,
I've spoken with him.
but Donna has. And then also include our senator, Senator Barrett. And I think it would be important to do that. So maybe towards the end of June or something if we can, or after school closes off. What would be?
Yes, after school. I'd like to do it after school
Yeah.
is over, when it's a little bit quieter in the summer. I don't know what you all think about that.
I'll be done pretty shortly, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Next week. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I like the idea of maybe doing like a breakfast or something with them. We could pick a morning. I mentioned, I think most of the reps use like, say, Fridays for days when they're in the district. We could maybe send out a little poll to them to see when they might be available. But we could have them in for a little breakfast. I could put together a presentation that talks about our facility plan. I would actually start it back several years ago with the modular classrooms at the elementary level. Talk a little bit about the Durham Whittier study we originally did, having them back in to do the follow-up study, and then even how we applied for the high school for a couple of years and just didn't get traction. We kind of reassessed, and now we've applied for a middle school project. So I could bring them all up to speed with kind of where we're at and why we're doing what we're doing, so that they could hopefully get behind and support us if it ends up getting to their level. But I do think because we're out of school actually fairly early this year. We're out the 15th or 16th. If we picked maybe a day, we were only out a week later, it's not that long. If we picked a day toward the end of June, you know, we could poll for some dates and have a morning or whatnot. We could certainly have the men and do that if you'd like.
So can I
I
have
think it would be good.
Maria work with you maybe on setting up some type of,
Yeah, we could do a little
Yeah.
poll and kind of figure out what
Yes.
dates will be.
all right, perfect. Do you
Okay.
mind working on that?
Sure, I don't mind at all. I also wanted to just mention this. It was really interesting to see. We have 3 representatives for Chelmsford. When you look at bills that are sponsored and so on, it's never Mr. or Miss so-and-so of Chelmsford. It's always of a different community. But I was very glad to be hearing how much they do know about Chelmsford and how much they are watching what's happening in Chelmsford in terms of the changes that are happening within our community. And one of the primary reasons why we are going to get an 18% increase in the funding is the changes that are happening. And the other thing is that they're watching for it in terms of helping us with earmarked money. And I know that both of them mentioned this to me, and we do thank them for it. Simon and Jim did get together about the earmarks that came into our town, and we're very appreciative of that. Chelmsford ended up benefiting from over 3/4 of the total earmarks that they got for the various communities they represent. So that was good to hear.
Great. Well, thank you, and thank you for working on that. All right, does anybody else have any other liaison reports? Anything for upcoming agendas or action items? I just have a couple, but go ahead.
One of the things, and I think Dennis kind of alluded to it a bit in terms of the busing in the middle schools, but just an update on that, and I think you said
Yeah,
it's
we'll
coming.
do that in June. Yep.
Okay.
So I know that the sidewalk assessment was done, and I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Christine Clancy at all, because I know there was at some point we were going to get together and have a meeting and talk about priorities.
Right.
And I didn't know if one of the places that we should start, I don't know if this would be helpful to Christine, but if, for people living under 2 miles, how many would actually be interested in having their children walk to school if sidewalks were available? But I would be curious about that, because, you know, all of our schools are on pretty busy roads.
Right.
You know, and, you know, there may be concerns that parents have.
Right.
But even if there were sidewalks, having their kids walk to school. So as we're looking at prioritizing, that might be a piece of information that she might want to have, just something to think about. And do you know if we're going to do
I
that?
do, yeah. We actually, myself and Brian Curley, our facilities director, meet with Christine and the DPW staff and Paul on a monthly basis. So we met 2 weeks ago. And what Christine would like to do, I believe it's actually our next meeting on June 5th. She plans to come and actually present kind of their sidewalk study and how it may impact the schools. As another opportunity for them to be able to publicly talk about it and maybe get a different audience of people who are watching our meeting than maybe watched a different town meeting. So I do believe she's actually coming to the
Okay.
next meeting to talk about the study and share that information. So we definitely can talk about it that night.
Yeah, you know, so they're looking at the priorities, you know, I mean, we often
They
say.
have some pretty sophisticated, like GIS
Yes.
mapping as well, and
Yeah.
they can kind of hone in on a school and take a look at existing
Right.
sidewalks and whatnot, but she's gonna come and show that to us.
All right, terrific. And then, if maybe the second meeting in June, we could go over our school committee goals, just to kind of round out the school year and talk about, update them on the progress that we've made. And then the last thing is, and this came up at the Chelmsford Friends of Music, but I was wondering, so I think that sometimes what happens is, and let's use the Garrison House as an example, that a lot of times in the past, PTOs have funded these trips. And I guess trying to figure out, you know, do they relate to our curriculum? And is that a cost that we should be assuming if the curriculum coordinators feel that it's an important part of, you know, what their programming is? And I didn't know if we had taken a look at that at all, or if that's something we should take a look at. And did everybody understand what I just said?
Yeah.
The Garrison House. So for a long time, PTOs funded
Oh,
that.
no, I know that, but that used to be in the 2nd grade, it moved to 3rd grade. There's a lot that's happened here, and I think that's because of the civics.
Right.
It's now a requirement.
Correct. And so, but for example, like the MICA competition or, you know, the Northeast Regionals for the music, if that's a really important part of the music program and we think that kids should be involved in that, then maybe that's a cost that we should assume as opposed to having like the Chelmsford Friends of Music pay for it or something.
Which I can understand, I think it's very important, but then it brings into question things like the UN, should that be a project that's funded for the humanities? Mock trial, should that be a project that's funded for the humanities? All the ones that were presented today
Right.
that are extracurricular activities,
Well,
should that be part of it?
Should that be? And I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying, I wonder if it's something that we should consider. As a direct relationship to the curriculum, and then therefore, this is something we want the kids to do, and then we should be able to fund that, whether it be the UN or whatever. So just, I don't know, something to think. Do you have a comment?
I do. So we have a list of all the events that are directly related to the curriculum and what
Okay.
we fund.
Okay, terrific. Could we see that?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there anything else?
Just graduation coming up before our next meeting, so it's the 3rd.
Oh, that's right, yeah, it's Saturday the 3rd.
Yeah. What time is
I
it?
forgot, we don't meet until
Right.
No, we gotta,
It's at
yeah,
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
6th.
Be there before.
Be there, 3:45.
Six, and it's on the 3rd.
Yeah, graduation is Saturday the 3rd, and I forgot, we don't meet again until the Tuesday the
Right.
6th.
Yeah.
So yes, the next time we'll see each other is at graduation.
All right, any other action items, new items, or anything else? We don't have anybody for public comment for second session?
We don't.
Okay, then with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, second. We all second, right, Susan?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0 in favor. Thank you, everybody.
I'm not used to the second.